Warning. The following video contains strong language that some viewers may find offensive or disturbing.
Non-Canadians. What is the first thing that comes to mind when you think Canada? I live about 45 minutes from Canada in Michigan. Hockey, poutine, and 19-year-old drinking age for me. I'm Australian. This is what I think of when I think Canada: friendliness and politeness. The Canadian flag. Maple trees, leaves, syrup. Mountains. Cold weather. Poutine. Speaking French. Hockey. Back in the day, 80s and stuff, we used to go across the St. Clair River, Lake Street. Clair to go to Canada. The thing that sticks out in my mind as the friendliest border guards, Coast Guard guys in the world. It was like, hey, so why are you traveling to Canada today? Oh, we're just gonna go pick some strawberries at that farm. You know the one. Oh, cool. Well, have a nice time. And don't forget to bring some back for us, once out on the lake. We got busted by Canadians for having open alcohol on the boat. You guys know that's against the law over here, right? My brother puts his beer out of their line of sight, okay. You guys have a nice day, and of course, living so close to Canada, we got Hockey Night in Canada, SCTV, and CBC Radio. Now take off. The Red Green Show. I will always imagine that show portrays the ideal Canadian life. Maple syrup and MOOSE. A wonderful life without effing pennies. When it first happened, I had a guy flip out and make me refund an entire order because I couldn't give him 2 pennies. He started ranting about sending a letter to Harper and that we couldn't rob him. First, I picture the beautiful flag. The simplicity and elegance which makes for a perfect flag. Then I picture the map. A huge county covered in unique and interesting nature. Then I picture the Mounties. Dressed in their sophisticated red uniforms. Gracefully riding their horses. Then I picture downtown Vancouver, where I saw a hobo taking a piss in his hat. The woods. Even though they're not talked about much. Canada's extensive boreal forests are super cool to me. Edit, now wondering how my most upvoted comment is literally just me saying that trees are neat. Extremely polite maple syrup. That's my joke, but, really. I think back to my childhood. Growing up in shitty apartments with a trailer park nearby in South Florida. An older couple that were snowbirds, people from a place with snowy winters. Who come to a warm place to spend the winter and then return home in the spring. They were the most delightful people. They somehow knew my dad. He was gone a lot for work and my mom was brutal. Anyway, they would arrive. They had a small trailer with an attached screened-in porch. The porch had jalousie windows. The trailer was a small 1-bedroom affair, tiny. It was neat as a pin. When they arrived, she would open it up and begin cleaning for their 3-month visit. The husband would be gone to work or the horse track. She would hire me to wash windows, pull weeds and clean. She paid me a few dollars here and there. Literally $5 was a king's ransom back then. But, she would cook for me. She made lunches and baked goods. I existed on cereal and other crap at home. My mother was a 100-pound cigarette smoker and didn't eat hardly at all and therefore never cooked. She was older when I was born. I was an oops kid for sure. At home my life sucked. This lovely woman fed me and treated me with kindness and dignity that my 11-year-old self had never known. I'm in my 50s now and can still see the inside of the screened-in porch and the TV tray where I sat and ate for a few days and then once a week after mowing for those 3 months. For 5 years until the husband died and they never returned. I swear, this lovely French-Canadian lady is responsible for any of the good that is in my heart. I hadn't thought of those moments in quite a while. I'm getting teary writing this. So there, that's what Canada means to me. Edit, wow, I had no idea that this would take off. I can't thank everyone enough for the huge outpouring of love. For those that are curious, Hialeah in the 70s. When they didn't show up that year, I asked my dad if he knew when they were coming. He explained the husband had died and that they were going to put the trailer up for sale without returning. I was crushed. I used to ride my bicycle over to their trailer and lay in the yard. A few months later, it sold and new people moved in. It hadn't been cleaned out. Apparently it sold with contents. That really bothered me. I didn't want strangers touching her things. I made the mistake of mentioning her to my mother once. She made a snide remark about that bitch and those fucking people. I never spoke of her again. Many years later my father talked of how he and the husband used to go fishing in the bay and the mangroves. How my mother hated her because she had made a dinner of pan-fried red snapper and grits with their day's catch once. It shamed my mother that she cooked for them all, while my mother did nothing. My dad complimented the meal and that was that. My people have all been gone for 20 years now. I'm certain she has gone as well. They were childless. So, there isn't anyone to reach out to. I'm pretty quiet about my childhood and wouldn't have said anything about this to a room full of people. But, from the safety of my keyboard I'm suddenly wordy. The cycle of miserable hatred and pain ends with me. My son will never know what it's like to be made to be less than. Thanks for letting me spill this out and all the gracious replies. I'll read every single one of them. Maple syrup and the Canadian flag. Honestly, that's what I just thought of. But also, I think of trees, airplanes, and Saskatchewan. Edit the letter Z. Or according to Canadians, Z. You have no idea how hard it is to insist to two toddlers that it's pronounced Z when every single song, TV show, toy, etc. says Z. They think I'm either an idiot or bullshitting them. I once saw something on Reddit. Not sure if it was a post or a comment. But it was someone describing how a Canadian will reach past someone at a grocery store to grab something and they'll pretty much always say this when they do, just gonna sneak right past ya there. This may not be exactly right, but it's still what I think about every time Canadians are mentioned in any medium. Phil Hartman, Jim Carrey, Mike Myers, Dan Aykroyd, Will Arnett, Tommy Chong, John Candy. So funny dudes. Yeah, I know, I'm old. Hockey. How in the world has no one said this? Hockey is one of the only places where a man with his teeth bashed out will point at another man with scars and a crooked nose and say, admiringly, that guy has such beautiful soft hands. Quote. To me, probably heroism and loyalty. Canada played a very major role in liberating my country from German occupation in WW2. And every year during the 5th and 6th of May we commemorate your bravery and sacrifice, so yeah. Thank you Canada. Edit. Wow, I didn't think there would be so much love for my little froggy country. Thank you all for your kindness and thank you so much for the silver and gold now too. Holy damn, it's my first. 3. The Tragically Hip. Watched the long time running Netflix doco last night and highly recommend it. Ain't nothing more Canadian than that. Canadian here. The most Canadian moment I've experienced is probably the night of the Hips' last concert. When it was broadcast live all across the country, entire communities came out and watched together in parks, etc. on big screens. It felt like every single Canadian had come together in that moment. And the sense of national unity that night is something I'll never forget. All-dressed ruffle chips. I learned embarrassingly late in life that all-dressed is purely a Canadian thing and can't be found in the States. This is weird, but honestly Degrassi, Next Generation comes to mind. Drake being on that show playing Jimmy cracks me up. Plus Spinner is my fav character for sure. Loved that fucking guy. The actual Degrassi Street is about a 5-minute drive from my house. My wife's American cousins freaked out when they learned this and made us drive over to show them. We also drove around the city showing them other places the show was filmed. Like, the high school they went to is actually a college that's also very near to where I live. Mounted police. I know a Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer and he said none of them ride horses and 90% of them are never trained to ride horses, let alone do police work on a horse. Miso said Trudeau and then smirked. For me, maple syrup. I didn't know what poutine was till I came here and it is the best thing I've ever had. After Indian street food, we're here now but we're not from here or from the same place. If you know what I mean. I would like to point out, as a Canadian, that not one of these responses seems negative, which is very nice. Thanks. I was thinking the same thing. At worst, we're being made fun of for light-hearted things like bagged milk. This reassures me that no one will see coming the Canadian global conquest to take over the world. Sorry, I've been playing a lot of Civ 6 lately. When I think of Canada, I think of overwhelming politeness. Even online. Here is my story. A few years back I was randomly Googling interesting things to pass the time and ended up on this Canadian social group board where politics was being discussed. Tens of thousands of members, so they didn't know one another personally. The topic became a bit heated and one user responded, "Everyone, please respect one another here. We sound like Americans." As an American, I could see her point but laughed it off because when people ask for calm discourse in an online chat, it rarely happens. But here, it was different. Literally hundreds of responses to her post apologizing to each other for their rude demeanor or emotional retorts. Sincere apologies all. It was 1, weird, and 2, wonderful. So, Canada reminds me of kindness. IDKY, but I start imagining two people standing at the door telling each other, "It's okay, you go in first." The fact that my ancestors were ejected from Canada by the British, I wish people who could prove Acadian ancestry, Cajuns, could get a track to citizenship there. I fantasized about moving to Montreal as a teen. Them being pissed that COVID-19 took their hockey privileges. So they found the first step toward a successful cure. Don't fuck with Canadians and their hockey. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and hit the notification button. See you next time.